So thank you to everybody who showed up today. It's a it's a bright and shiny day for a lot of people, and that's a marvelous thing. And it's a little difficult for other people. So in this spiritual community, I talk a lot about spiritual practice, and we practice spiritual practices a lot. There's a reason we do that. They help keep us grounded and centered. And we've had an awful lot of opportunities to practice this week. So today's talk title, Being Grateful for All of It. How can we? Just think about your last week, this last week for a minute. Yesterday when I was driving across town for something, I was in the slow lane because I was driving slow, and this guy comes zooming past me going really, really fast. And this is like, 40, 45 mile an hour speed limit. And he's just tearing down the road. And I'm thinking, he's going too fast. And then, of course, we get to the next stoplight and we're sitting side by side. And the light changes and he actually hits the car in front of him because he's in such a hurry to get where he's going. He actually slows himself down because they have to pull off the road and discover whether or not there was any damage from his action. Think about your week. What happened in your week? How did your thinking create those experiences? Not directly, because we don't believe in that. But this morning I was thinking some stupid thing about power. And so the band was up and we'd managed to get a good enough Zoom link that when my power went out, they could keep talking because Zoom transfers host from one person to the next as long as there's more than one person on the call. Be really careful what you're thinking about and the direction and the tendency of your thought, because that's what we get to experience. So think about your last week. Let me prod your memory just in case you can't think of anything. The car won't start, or it gets a flat tire, or the refrigerator breaks, or the repairman doesn't show up like he's supposed to, or he can't fix the thing that's broken, or they don't have your favorite fill in the blank brand of whatever at the grocery store. Someone you expect to help you doesn't show up in the way you wanted them to. The insurance company is uncooperative. You walk around your living room and you bang your knee on the coffee table. You can't find that important piece of paper you need. It rains. It doesn't rain, and it's supposed to. The light bulb burns out in the laundry room, and it's a pain in the neck to change. Do I need to keep going? All of these are effects. They're not causes. It's just stuff that happens, and we get to decide how to see them, how to interpret them, how to translate them and give them importance in our lives. So, how do we find gratitude for it all? In the Christian New Testament, Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Rome, all things work together for good. Ernest Holmes took that quote and expanded on it in The Science of Mind on page 485. All things work together for our good. Even that which we call evil is salutary, leading us to the way, the truth, and the life. Suffering should teach us a lesson, but it's not what you think. The lesson would cause us to refrain from making more mistakes. It carries a blessing with it when we learn how to gain knowledge from experience. So when I created a bruise on my knee from hitting the coffee table, it's not stupid coffee table or stupid Janis. It's, oh, I wasn't paying attention. There's a whole different way, and I can be grateful for the awakening that makes me pay attention in my life. So Holmes's quote, all things work together for our good. Those of you who have been around a while have also heard an expansion on this phrase. All things work together for my good, work together for my awakening, work together for my enlightenment. This doesn't mean that things work out like I want them to every single time. It means I can make use of whatever happens. So I wonder, do you hear the yabbits rising in your head? Yeah, but what about this and what about that? All things work together for my awakening, period. So if I can't see the good in a situation, perhaps I haven't looked at it deeply enough or long enough or let enough time pass so I can have a clearer perspective and perception and see all the positive things that happen as a result of this particular unpleasant experience. And as a special bonus, for my awakening also includes becoming aware of and seeing through all the old beliefs, old stories, or bad instructions that I have habitually clung to that don't actually serve me. They don't serve my awakening. And I get to see all those hidden and not so hidden agreements that I have made to keep peace in my life. I was talking to my sister this morning, as we always do, and she told me a terrible story, actually, about one of our family friends. The son, a year or so ago, had what I call a midlife crisis, and he screwed up his life big time. He threw away his family, he threw away his livelihood. His family basically disowned him. Yeah, it was that bad. But he was the only son. And it mattered to the family that the son wasn't, the black sheep. So the family kind of, sort of took him back. Sort of. They don't know where he lives. They absolutely do not talk about what happened or the impact that his indiscretion had on him, his ex-wife, his kids, or the greater family relationships. Well, that family gathered last weekend and the weekend before, and now he has COVID, and he has it bad. Not bad enough to be in the hospital, but bad enough. And his mom has it too. She's asymptomatic. And she taught the older women's Sunday school class last Sunday. So this story that's hidden and not talked about by him, by his family, by that entire group of people is having knock-on effects. And it's a hidden story that has to come out. Hidden agreements that we have, hidden stories that we don't own, that we don't honor, that we don't recognize and address, don't stay hidden. It's not their nature. They show us what we are consciously or unconsciously ignoring. So, yeah, there's that. And I didn't notice I was worried about power until, of course, it went out. It's like, oh, right, I know better. It's like, no, power stay on. This is good. We have good signal. Life is good. And we have to pay attention to our lives because that's where our information comes from. That's where our feedback comes from. So when you've got something going sideways, check and see what story's running in your mind. Because there's probably a link, something that you can change by changing your mind. And this is the good news, I guess. Since every single one of us is already an immortal, eternal, infinite spiritual being who has chosen to be born in this world of form and experience, because we want to practice watching our thoughts materialize in front of our eyes. and hopefully learn from them, we get to see how and what we think. That's just how the game of life is played, if you've ever read Florence Scovel Shinn's book. That's just how the game is played, plain and simple. And we probably won't be aware of what we've been thinking unconsciously or believing a lot of the time, at least not until it jumps us and smacks us in the face. I posted an Emerson quote on our Facebook page before our Wednesday night class, Living in Gratitude. The quote read, "Cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you, or to give thanks continuously, because all things easy for me, and because all things have contributed to your advancement, you should include all things in your gratitude." All things, everything, no exceptions. But what if bad things happen? Let's take our cue from Thich Nhat Hanh. When an unpleasant feeling, physical or mental, arises in him, the wise man does not worry, complain, pound his chest, pull his hair, weep, torture his body and mind, or faint. He calmly observes his feelings and is aware they are only feelings. He knows he is not that feeling, and he is not caught by that feeling. Therefore, the pain, the discomfort cannot trap him. So what if it's really good stuff? The answer is the same. We enjoy the feeling. We enjoy the external experience, but we don't let it overwhelm, guide, strongly color, or direct our decisions. What happens in the world of form is always an effect. It's always a result. It's always a result. It's never a cause. And it's so easy to forget all the spiritual stuff and think that we're supposed to be happy only when good things happen, and sad, angry, or unhappy when things happen we don't want. That's reacting to an effect or a consequence. It's not reacting to a cause. Joel Goldsmith, in his little pamphlet, Love Gratitude, wrote about how easy it is to be confused and look at a light bulb and think we're seeing the source of the light. Then when the light bulb goes out, gets burnt out, be upset because it's dark. It's easy to forget it's not the light bulb that causes the light. It's electricity. We can put another light bulb in that socket just like I did yesterday in the laundry room and experience light again. Cause is invisible. Cause is mental. Cause is hidden and revealed only by observing the effects. We can't see electricity. We can see what it does. We can see what it does when a circuit is complete, but we can't see electricity itself. So the rest of the reading that Shelley did this earlier that we use for today's spiritual thought from Ernest Holmes' 365 Science of Mind says, the attitude of praise and thanksgiving are salutary. They not only lighten the consciousness, lifting it out of sadness and depression, they also elevate consciousness to a point of acceptance. And this next sentence is the real key. Praise and thanksgiving are really attitudes of recognition. Attitudes of recognition. What are we recognizing? He goes on, these are affirmations of the divine presence, the divine abundance, and the divine givingness of the universe. It is only when we are living affirmatively that we are happy. It is only when we recognize that the universe is built on affirmation, what we claim, what we affirm, what we honor, what we direct, that we can become happy. So, what do we recognize? In the creative process of the individual, a very dense little book written by Judge Thomas Troward, he lists what he considers are the 7 primary qualities of God: life, love, light, power, peace, beauty, and joy. Clearly, this is not an all-inclusive list, but it's a pretty good place to start. What's interesting about this list, but not surprising, is because we live in the divine and are of the divine nature, we reflect and express that divine nature. Each of these qualities live in us too. One of the ways we express our divinity is through practicing the attitude of gratitude for everything. So, how on earth do we do that? In the Christian Bible, Apostle Paul wrote to the church at Philippi, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Well, obviously, he was speaking metaphorically. The physical man Jesus wasn't around, and he couldn't have helped Paul out with this even if he was. Holmes translates this for us in The Science of Mind, page 564. Each human is divine, and the Christ way is the way of the unfolding of their divinity through their humanity, the uncovering of every individual's spiritual individuality, and the use that their personhood makes of it. Each of us expresses this divine nature as we align with our higher self, with our way of operating in that most beneficent way. Each of us has this capability all the time, and we get to remember and practice. We're already divine. We uncover our own divine nature in part by self-contemplation, reflection, and in part by the contemplation of the oneness of all life, which happens in meditation, and in part by learning to see that all events, conditions, activities, experiences, and circumstances of our lives through God eyes, to see them as God sees them, to see them with that awareness of that presence living in us and through each of us. So I want to close with a piece of the 2008 commencement address that novelist Barbara Kingsolver gave at Duke University. She calls it a poem. It's not really a poem. Well, it's a poem like a prose poem, but it's called Hope, an Owner's Manual. Look, you might as well know this thing is going to take endless repair. Rubber bands, crazy glue, tapioca, the square of the hypotenuse, 19th century novels, heartstrings, sunrise. All of these are useful. Also feathers. To keep it humming, sometimes you have to stand on an incline where everything looks possible, on a line you drew yourself, or in the line at the grocery store making faces at a toddler secretly over his mother's shoulder. You might have to pop the clutch and run past all the evidence, past everyone who is laughing at you or praying for you. Definitely, you don't want to go to jail. But still, here you are, passing time. Don't pass life up. In the worst of times, you'll have to pass it off. Park it and fly by the seat of your pants. With nothing in the bank, you'll still want to take the express. Tiptoe past the dogs of the apocalypse that are sleeping in the shade of your future. Pay at the window. Pass your hope like a bad check. You still might have just enough time to make a deposit. Make this intentional deposit for your good and the good of all in your life. When you do that, remember it probably won't work out exactly like you want it to, but it will. It always does work out for your good, for your awakening, for your enlightenment. And so be grateful for it all, even the hard stuff, because every bit of it informs you. Every bit of it informs me. So remember to keep your focus on that. Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So now I want to roll right into the prayer. So if you'd like to hold in your mind something that you would like to get clearer about, some piece of story, some piece of something you don't quite understand, what message, what gift it brings you, put that in your mind, hold that in your consciousness while I speak the words. Infinite radiant life, whole and holy presence, divine love, wondrous wonder and oneness. All of these names represent this totality, this infinity that I call God. And it is known by many more names than that: love and peace and joy and harmony and beauty. And it encompasses everything I recognize as life, everything I don't. It encompasses my entire experience and the entire experience of each beloved on this call. And so as I wrap my mind around this eternal presence, I know that I live in that. I live as that to the best of my ability. And so does everyone else. Each one has the continuous opportunity to look at their lives, to check out their experiences, and see if they can interpret some experience with a different perspective, if it gives them grief, or to see it as joy, if it gives them delight. So I see this life as a magnificent adventure, hopeful, whole, life-giving, life-affirming, life-expanding, expressive, joyful. And I know that as I choose to put my focus in that direction, that will be my experience. And even when I find myself hitting the edge of the coffee table with my knee and having less than godly thoughts, I can still notice what I notice and see God in that. And as I remember, I get to have the experience of the divine that I choose. So I choose love. I choose light. I choose peace. I choose joy, beauty, kindness, compassion. And I know that this is available to and for all. So I celebrate this opportunity to be and to practice and to know the life-giving experience that I have the joy and pleasure of having. Celebrating this for myself and for all. I cheer, I delight, and I let it be. And so it is.